Welcome to Voluntaryist Academy. I'm your host, James Cordiner. This channel is dedicated to the complete abolition of slavery. You own yourself, period. Tonight, I just wanted to hop on real quick and read an excerpt from a book called Philosophical Voluntaryism by a man named Jack Lloyd. And it'll be a quick one. It's just going to be an excerpt out of the book. I want people to go and get their own copy of this book. And we don't have a PDF of it, so I'll just be reading it from the book cam. Here is the book, and here's what it looks like. So before we get started, just, drop a comment, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Really helps the channel. It's the best way to help the channel. Go over to voluntaristacademy.com. That's my website, and you can check out everything over there. And then, so we're going to begin. And so the excerpt that I wanted to read tonight is an excerpt about, it's chapter 6 out of his book. The chapter is titled, How Do I Exist and Act? And this book is great. It's a great source. And so what we're going to be getting into eventually is logical fallacies. And this is a very quick way to do it through Jack's book here. And in the future of this channel, we'll be getting into logical fallacies as time goes on. But I just wanted to introduce this into the record, and it's a great way to do so with Jack's book here. So without any further ado, we have chapter 6 called How Do I Exist and Act? Your existence is wholly tied to the assumption that your consciousness expression is a self-enacting proof of your existence. The French philosopher Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am." While deceptively simple, this statement holds an important self-reflective truth for us to consider. How else could we know if we exist in some form unless we have a consciousness with which to observe and reflect with? To even question whether one has consciousness as a human being, it requires having a consciousness with which to express that curiosity. It is at this point of thought we can rest easy for a moment and reflect on the idea that questioning our existence presupposes an existing consciousness that can mull the question. This assumption does not itself prove where our consciousness is situated, of course. As mentioned earlier, people could be in a theoretical simulation, like the Matrix, blissfully unaware of the fact that their experience of quote-unquote reality is not where their ultimate bodily form lies. However, without criteria for proof or disproof otherwise, assuming that consciousness is real and actionable at least allows for us to move forward so we can process our experiences to see how our perceptions match our experiences. In thinking about your own life, you can discover that you are an inherently selfish being. By selfish, I mean that you act toward pleasing your desires and bringing yourself happiness and satisfaction. This selfishness does not mean that you do not help others or seek the benefit of others. Rather, it means that you act only if you believe that your course of action is going to meet some form of satisfaction for yourself, whether psychological or material. For example, a mother takes care of her child both due to biological drive and the happiness it brings her. A mother who does not have such a drive or happiness may still care for a child out of pain avoidance, that is, out of not wanting negative consequences that stem from neglecting the child, whether it's seeing the child suffer or possible social and legal consequences from child neglect charges. A mother who neither derives satisfaction in childcare nor cares for the consequences may abandon her child because she believes her satisfaction is better met by not taking care of her child. In all cases, whether a mother provides care or not, the actions chosen stem from the internal psyche and a drive to bring pleasure or avoid pain. Even though children may not offer their mother a tangible physical benefit, as children are wholly dependent, the mother's consciousness is pleased through the experience of caretaking, and that drives its continuation. If a child grows older and haphazardly runs into the street, a mother may even jump out in front of a car, facing serious bodily injury, if it means she can protect her child from being hit. Again, even if the mother becomes physically hurt, her self-interest in the psychological satisfaction of knowing that she is protecting her child outweighs the detriments to her bodily self-preservation. Self-interest does not have to be rationally related in cause and effect. So long as a person believes they are going to benefit, they will act according to that belief. For example, think of a time when you made a purchase of an item that later turned out to be a bad decision. Whether it was a meal that didn't end up tasting good or an electronic that failed quickly. You may have made the purchase on the belief that the product would be good and beneficial to you, but the ultimate empirical result failed to meet your expectations. These thought processes are what describe why and how people act generally. If you understand that you naturally act in your own self-interest, and that self-interest can reflect a variety of values, material and psychological, then you can see how what you believe benefits you will influence the empirical outcomes in your life. If you hold good information, that is, information that accurately reflects the nature of existence and causal connections for outcomes, then you can make choices that materialize in reaching your self-interested goals. If you hold bad information, information that does not accurately reflect cause and effect, it's possible that your choices may end up harming you because the benefit you thought you would receive turns into a detrimental experience. This is precisely why the process of learning how to improve one's perceptions and thinking is so critical. Without accurate perception, the information one attains is distorted. Without accurate thinking, the way one processes information can lead to poor choices that do not materialize in self-benefit. How to sharpen your mind. Sharpening your thinking begins with the phrase, "I don't know." To improve, you must admit where you lack knowledge so you can know what areas you will need to seek a better understanding in. This will require starting at basic assumptions about one's worldview and challenging those things, especially if one has never gone through such an experience before. Many adults are ruled by the assertions, traumas, and mantras that were put onto them as children. They believe that certain things in life are true because those claims were repeated to them over and over, whether at home or at school. Going to the root of your values will require assessing what it is you believe about the world and why, and checking to see if those beliefs came about because of your own personal investigation and confirmation, or if they came about because you were acclimated to their assumption of truth, whether out of social convention or intentional brainwashing. Self-reflection starts with asking yourself what kinds of influences you experienced growing up. Were you brought up in a religious or a religious household? What values were you taught? How did others treat you in your social circles? What kind of diet did you experience growing up? How was physical and mental health modeled for you? Did you feel loved and heard? Or were you often made fun of, mocked, and shamed? What expectations were put onto you by the adults in your life? Going through these questions will help you reflect on what kinds of ideas helped to create the person you are today. Starting to think through these questions, I highly recommend you read the following 2 books to help you understand your childhood's impact. Those books are Healing the Child Within, Discovery and Recovery for Adult Children of Dysfunctional Families by Charles L. Whitfield, and Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life, a life-changing tools for healthy relationships by Dr. Marshall B. Rosenberg. These 2 books are great tools to help you know yourself better, and they will enable you to communicate your thoughts and feelings in a productive manner. The clarity you will attain from reading through them will also help you see your developed patterns of past behavior. If you take the time to do serious self-reflection, you will be more empowered to carefully consider what you want to see changed in your life. Thinking skills. Evaluating sources. Once you have read those titles, you will be better equipped to move on to the next order of improving your reasoning skills through evaluating sources of information. Evaluating sources of information is a difficult task because each person is limited in what they can confirm due to scarce resources and time. It is not possible for every person to replicate every single experiment that others have conducted to confirm for themselves all the advancements in science, mathematics, psychology, and technology. Because of these limitations, everyone inherently relies on some form of trust in the credibility of others. Whether it's as small as trusting the chef at a restaurant to correctly make your order, to as big as trusting the architects and engineers who made the giant bridges you drive across. And in evaluating sources, a heuristic can be used on a sliding scale basis to judge whether one should find a source more credible or less credible. The heuristic presented here has the acronym TIPMI, TIPMI. The T stands for trustworthiness. Does the person offering information have a trustworthy reputation, or are they known for making many false statements and or unfulfilled promises? For example, if you were to be offered a business deal from a person who had 3 past criminal convictions, one for writing bad checks, one for theft, and the other for fraud, they may not appear to be trustworthy given their past bad actions. Maybe they have spent a lot of time reforming and building back up their reputation, but that's a judgment call for you to make given the facts and circumstances. I stands for interest. Does someone have a special interest in the outcome of a claim? For example, imagine someone promoting a new coronavirus vaccine has $10 million invested in the companies manufacturing them. Their honesty or forthrightness about any potential problems with the vaccine may be clouded by a desire to ensure that the product is sold without any detraction. P stands for perception. Has the person offering the information themselves observed the information talked about? For example, imagine someone claims that there is no such thing as viruses, but they have never used a microscope of any kind and have never performed any lab experiments to test and see if viruses exist. This person lacks an quote-unquote ability to see if they do not have any means to test and confirm. Someone claiming to have seen viruses who has access to and uses an electron microscope in a lab routinely would have a better ability to experiment and observe if there were such things as viruses. The M stands for mastery. Does the person offering information have demonstrated mastery in the field? This mastery can come in many forms, whether it is through academic credentials, work experience, or work product. The more technical and difficult a topic is, the more likely someone will need to show a mastery of a topic to be able to speak deeply about it. For example, if someone were to claim that they knew raising the minimum wage would help people around the world, but they never studied the effects of past minimum wage increases and have never studied economic theory in any form, it would be clear that the person lacks a mastery of the topic to speak deeply on the effects of minimum wage increases. And finally, I, in the acronym, stands for influences. Does the person offering information have any personal influences that may bias their honesty? For example, if a politician is great friends with a lobbyist, that politician may not be forthright about their friend's lobbying efforts to get a government grant. In this case, the influence is a favorable bias. There can also be unfavorable biases where someone has shown they are decidedly against supporting an opponent's position, even if it is true. For example, if an incumbent politician's election opponent makes a claim that past government spending has hurt the economy, the incumbent may claim otherwise to keep up the appearance that they did a good job in office, even if they know that their spending did hurt economic growth. While the TIPMI analysis does not itself determine the absolute truth of information, it does provide several avenues of investigation to help you examine whether an offerer of information should be readily trusted, especially where it may be difficult to otherwise prove or disprove the statements via one's own hands-on verification. It is a useful tool among many to help you navigate knowledge gathering. All right, and here's where we get into the really what I wanted to get into. This is great. Logical fallacies. In addition to analyzing the sources of information, it is important to analyze arguments to see if there are fallacious statements made. Logical fallacies are errors of reasoning where someone improperly accepts or dismisses information due to false or improper connections. Below are some of the more common fallacies to help you refine your thinking skills. The straw man fallacy. A straw man occurs when someone misrepresents the position of another to make it easier to dismiss them. The misrepresentation can come in the form of an exaggeration or outright falsehood. For example, if someone says they think taxation is ethically wrong and another responds, "You just want children to starve," the response does not drive at the question of whether taxation is ethical and instead substitutes in an assertion the first person did not say. They, quote, "want children to starve," end quote. It's a pivot from the original claim. Next is an appeal to authority, or what's the Latin name for appeal to authority? Oh, I should know that off the top of my head. Anyways, an appeal to authority takes place when someone claims the reason they or another is right due to the authority itself and not the reason and evidence of the claim. For example, if someone says that taxes are good because the government said so, they are appealing to the perceived authority of government instead of looking at the nature of taxation and its effects. Next is begging the question. Begging the question takes place when the argument is compromised of multiple assertions that rely on each other, creating a circular reasoning. For example, if someone claimed that the Bible was true because the Bible said it's true in 2 Timothy 3:16 through 17, it would be begging the question by relying on the source asserting its own truth, claiming a claim about itself. The tu quoque fallacy is Latin for "you also." It means turning a criticism made against oneself back onto the opponent instead of answering the criticism. For example, if a politician was accused of stealing funds from his office, he would be engaged in a tu quoque fallacy if he responded with, "You're all stealing from the government." He's not addressing the criticism. He is deflecting. Next is personal incredulity. Personal incredulity takes place when someone believes that something must be false simply because they cannot imagine how it could come to fruition. For example, if someone were to hear that a loved one committed an act of murder and they said, "That's not possible. I cannot believe they would do such a thing." It would be their personal incredulity foreclosing the possibility that their loved one committed murder instead of the physical evidence of whether the act was committed. Next is burden of proof. The burden of proof is the idea that a person making a claim has the burden of proving the truth of their claim. When someone makes an assertion and then turns it onto others to prove, they are doing what is known as, quote unquote, shifting the burden of proof. For example, if someone claims that there is a flying unicorn above them and others question that it exists because they don't see it, the claimant would be shifting the burden of proof by saying, "Well, prove me wrong." This concept is used to keep arguments focused on that which someone has reason and evidence for. Next is the loaded question. A loaded question fallacy is where a premise is assumed in a question that may not be itself proven. For example, if someone were to ask, "When did you stop beating your wife?" The question of whether one's wife was being beaten is itself assumed as true in the question, even if that person had not done such a thing at all. Loaded questions are meant to make others look bad by putting them on the defensive. Next is the anecdotal fallacy. Anecdotal fallacies are when an individual takes a single experience and wrongly generalizes that experience to all cases. For example, if a woman were to go on a terrible blind date with a guy who rode a motorcycle, she may go on to say that guys who ride motorcycles must be real jerks, even though her experience was not representative of all guys who ride motorcycles. The Texas sharpshooter. The Texas sharpshooter fallacy takes place when one tries to use some data in support of one's position, even if that data is not actually demonstrating a causal relationship. For example, if a gummy bear company were to claim that the 5 U.S. cities where gummy bear consumption was highest all had lower average body mass indexes, it would be questionable whether the gummy bear consumption caused the lower weight, or whether there were other social environmental factors that went into it. The companies making use of the correlation to promote gummy bear consumption without investigating other factors would be cherry-picking data for their beneficial ends. The next fallacy is appeal to nature. The appeal to nature fallacy is where someone claims that something is true because it is quote-unquote natural. For example, someone may claim that using pain-relieving medicine is bad because it's not natural for humans to have pain medicine. The problem here is that quote-unquote nature is an inanimate concept that does not itself dictate the truth of what is possible among humans. There are all kinds of actions that can take place in nature, from animals eating their young to volcanoes erupting and killing all life forms nearby. That something happens in nature does not automatically determine what human beings should do about it. Next is the slippery slope fallacy. The slippery slope fallacy is a fallacy where someone claims that one course of action should be avoided because there are undesirable mandatory ripple effects. For example, someone could claim that weed should not be legalized for adults, or else every child would do nothing but smoke all day. As demonstrated otherwise empirically in states where it is legal, it can be shown that just because something is legal does not mean all kids will automatically engage in the activity. If the slippery slope criticism ends up materializing, then the slippery slope claim cannot be said to be a fallacy, but is rather a casual empirical result. The fallacy. The fallacy is where someone claims that another's truth claim is wrong because they engaged in a fallacy. The issue here is that it is possible for someone to come to a correct conclusion, but for the wrong reasons. For example, someone may claim that eating an apple will make one feel good because the magical apple goddess bestows joy when one eats an apple. In reality, the apple feels good to eat because the body registers the nutrients and sends signals through the gastrointestinal tract to the brain to confirm the food's benefit. Next is the ad hominem. Ad hominem is Latin for to the person. And ad hominem represents a personal attack made to deflect from another's criticism. For example, if someone claimed that government subsidization of welfare leads to more reliance on it because people become comfortable living off the welfare system, and someone else responded to that claim with, "You're just stupid," that person would be that would be an attack on the person in lieu of responding to the argument about welfare. Next is the false attribution fallacy. The false attribution fallacy takes place when someone claims that two correlated events have a causal relationship when they do not. A website called Spurious Correlations hosts several great examples where author Tyler Vigin graphs different events with a seeming correlation even though they are unrelated. One of the funnier ones is per capita cheese consumption increasing at a similar rate as people who died by becoming tangled in their bed sheets. Maybe if those people had eaten a lot of cheese before dying in bed, there might be something to it. Until then. Okay, next is the bandwagon. Yeah, this one's fun. The bandwagon fallacy is an appeal to popularity of a choice or action as a form of truth acceptance. It's the old, well, everyone else is doing it too statement. Just because lots of people engage in something does not make it ethical or correct. For example, the Aztecs believed that human sacrifice was necessary for the gods to manage the cosmos. Fortunately, that common belief is no longer common as people have studied the physics of the universe and found that to be untrue. Okay, next is the genetic fallacy. This fallacy arises when someone dismisses or accepts a claim or claimant because of where they came from. For example, if someone said that anyone from Miami, Florida is a liar, they would be making the mistake of thinking that being from there somehow disproves anything else they could possibly say. Even just one person from Miami saying one true thing would debunk the genetic fallacy premise. Next is fallacy of composition. The composition fallacy is one where someone believes that the partial truth of something must apply to the whole. For example, someone who learns the human body takes in air through the lungs could wrongly believe that because they have air inside them, they can then float in the sky. That a person's body can take in air does not mean that the rest of the body can then become airy and float up into the sky due to the mass of the rest of their body. Next is the no true Scotsman. The no true Scotsman fallacy takes place when someone attempts to limit the description of a category to their to their preferences when, in reality, the category has wider features than the limitation. The Scotsman label originated with someone trying to suggest what a quote-unquote true Scotsman does or does not do. For example, if someone claimed that a true Scotsman would never put pineapple on pizza, but someone born, raised, and living in Scotland puts pineapple on their pizza, that would frustrate the categorical limitation through a counterexample. Hopefully this introductory set of fallacies gives you a good sense of how you can refine your thinking and get clarity when discussing ideas with others. If you'd like to dive deeper and learn more about fallacies, pick up the book, The Tuttle Twins Guide to Logical Fallacies by Connor Boyack. Or you can get, just to hop off the reading real quick. I have also this book from the Wooden Book series, Wooden Books, and this is a great source of like logical fallacies. I mean, it really does go deep. You know, what Jack's done in his book is an awesome introductory, and then you can get like something like, oop, I knocked my camera. Then you can get something like this as well. You can get something like this as well from like maybe like a Barnes and Noble or something like that. But you know, this logic book here has even got like exercises and stuff like that in it. This has a full list of logical fallacies as well. And in the future, this is a book that I'll be using along with the Wooden Books Trivium. These are the books that I will be using to take a deeper dive into logical fallacies as time progresses on this channel. So, but this is 100% like an excellent introductory to the logical fallacies. Next, we're going to take a little bit of a look into cognitive biases. Cognitive biases are psychological tendency errors that can affect your decision making and judgment. Understanding common biases can make you aware of missing contexts and help you expand your considerations. Let's look at a few common ones. All right, so confirmation bias. This takes place when you only accept information that conforms to your pre-existing beliefs. If you only look at and consider that which supports your claim, but do not analyze counterclaims and debunk them with reason and evidence, then you're only engaged in supporting your preconceived outcomes and are not really establishing the truth of your claim against credible critics. Sunk cost bias. This takes place when you've heavily invested yourself in something but are unwilling to make needed change because of that investment. For example, someone may have spent years working toward a gender studies degree in college, only to figure out at the end of their third year that degree won't pay off. Instead of switching majors, they decide to finish the degree even though the chances of employment at a good job are slim because they've already spent so much time and money toward earning it. Next is the self-serving bias. This is a tendency to blame others and or other things when problems arise in one's life to give oneself credit for success. In one's life, but to give oneself credit for success. For example, someone who struggles to find employment may blame capitalism for their struggle, but then when a new business opens in town and they are able to get a job, they give their interviewing skills all the credit. The anchoring bias. Your first exposure to information may color how you view any subsequent information. This is especially problematic if the first piece of information you gained was not a good representation. For example, if someone had a bad experience at a national brand car dealership, they may believe that car dealerships are not the best place to buy a car, even if that dealership was a rare experience and most car dealerships had competitive offerings with good service. Hopefully this introductory set of cognitive biases gives you some food for thought about how certain psychological tendencies can distort your thinking. If you'd like to learn more about cognitive biases, you can pick up the book, The Tuttle Twins Guide to Beware Your Bias by Connor Boyack. So, these are the types of skills that we need to develop when we're approaching new ideas, when we're doing research, and we're developing critical thinking skills. The overwhelming lack of critical thinking skills is a result of the public education system. It's sad but true, and it's done purposefully. You're taught what to think, not how to think. I know that's a bit of a cliche thing to say at this point, but it is truth. So this is through all the history lessons and all of the deep dive research into some of the books. It's good to take a break and kind of get into some of the critical thinking skills and how to develop them. And that's also going to be a main focus of this channel in the future, because it's not just about learning, the history of voluntarism. It's also about how to take the lessons and put them into action. And critical thinking is a set of actions. It's a skill. So that's what I hope to help people develop in the future. Again, like I might be having Jack on sometime in the future. So we'll be able to talk to him a little bit more. He's got a couple of other books too. I suggest that you check out the links in the show notes, because he's a pretty cool dude, actually. Very friendly too. I met him at PorkFest a couple years ago. Very friendly guy. Him and his wife are very friendly people. So, oh yeah, earlier today, I interviewed Keith Knight from the Don't Tread on Anyone podcast. That interview is posted on the channel, so go check that out, because we had a pretty good conversation. I enjoyed asking questions to Keith. He's a really cool dude. He's been around for a long time, and he's just like a wellspring of information. It's truly incredible to have been able to host him, and you guys should go check that out. It's on the channel now, and I'll put it like on like the end screen or whatever. It'll be for the replay. So not a very long one tonight. I just wanted to get one, under my belt for this evening. We will continue. We'll continue eventually with more of this book, Men Against the State. I I just didn't have the time for it tonight. Oh my God, he didn't have the time for it. Look, like I got like probably like 4 or 6 inches of snow this morning throughout the day. I was out there shoveling. Oh my God. It was fun. But yeah, check out that interview with Keith. He's a good dude. And check out some of Jack's work. He's a good dude. And you can like and subscribe to this channel. That would help me out tremendously. Share this around. Hit the notification bell so when I go live at random, I try to keep it on sort of a schedule, but if I go live at random, you get notified and you can come check out what I'm discussing or presenting for that evening. We're going to be doing some more interviews in the future. I got some booked up. Hopefully everything works out. And so, yeah, that's been it. I'm James Cordiner. You've been such a great audience. Thank you for tuning in. Go to voluntaryistacademy.com and check out the website. Check out some of the other videos on the channel. And we got Brendan Daniel to play us out as usual. And Autonomy Season 13 is getting started. So check out the getautonomy.info link in the show notes if you think that you're the type of person that could use some improvement in your communication skills, maybe your sales ability. Sales is not what you think it is. On the other side of autonomy, I have a completely different opinion on sales. You could be selling anything. Like you could be selling your podcast and trying to get listeners to your podcast, for instance. So, yeah, you can check out that link. It's an affiliate link. So if you do end up enrolling, it is going to help me out a little bit. And I'd appreciate that. I appreciate all the support that anyone could ever give to this channel. It means the world to me. So with that being said, that's it. And on your way out, just remember, you own yourself, period.